but I may never find her. I gotta try till I can look her in the eye and ask her if she's saving me a space, chasing grace. I seen her when I'm dreaming, she is running wild and free, somewhere between the might have been and never gonna be. It's another lonely morning, I shake myself awake, head back out on the highway, forever chasing grace, forever chasing grace, forever chasing grace, forever chasing Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. You know, the thing I love about grace is you actually don't have to chase it, do you? I love that line about giving up chasing grace, because sometimes that's what you got to do. Just let it go. Well, good morning, everybody. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We've been exploring a topic that was inspired by an article that I read some years ago by a man named Bill Harris. And Bill's a wonderful, insightful teacher, and he gives tips for traveling through troubled times. And one of the important things about troubled times, when you're traveling through troubled times, I said a couple of weeks ago, it's important that you keep traveling, right? And so you don't. And one of my favorite verses in Scripture is, "It came to pass." Pretty short and sweet, but you'll see it all through there. It came to pass. It's important to remember that whatever you're going through right now, it didn't come to stay, it came to pass. And so having that awareness helps us to move through challenges and difficulties and troubled times. I've been talking about this the last few weeks, and I wanted to kind of give you a recap of some of the tips that Bill gave us. One is, first one is stop blaming, because the moment that you blame, you're automatically making yourself a victim. The next one is to breathe into your heart. Remember to breathe into the heart. The next one is to remember where your source is. We have a tendency to lose that when we're in challenging times, don't we? The next one is to let go of attachments. Next one is to trust in the process of life. Focus on and take action on what you can do and not on what you can't do. Good tip, right? Focus on and give thanks for what you have and not on what you lost. Another wonderful way of shifting our awareness, our energy. Next one is look for ways that you can help others. Really pulls us out of our own self-limited thinking. Look for and help others to see the light. And also encourage, he says, I encourage you to get rid of what-if thinking. Let go of the what-ifs. What if you actually let go of the what-ifs? Ba-dum-bum, right? So I wanted to share with you some thoughts and insights on some of the other tips that he has for us as far as being able to shift our energy and our consciousness out of the kind of energy and consciousness that brought us into those darker places in the first place. And to help us move our energy into a place where we are using our creative ability, as our daily word said today, our will, our ability to make choices, use it in a way that we are actually enhancing the blessings and the good in our lives, and we're actually subtracting the energy that we've been giving to the challenges, the difficulties, the trouble, the darkness. And so I came across a story some years ago, actually Charles Schulz cartoon, Charlie Brown. You guys familiar with Charlie Brown? He's a master at moving through troubled times, wouldn't you say? But so Charlie Brown is bringing out Snoopy's dinner on Thanksgiving Day, and Snoopy really is the master of moving through troubled times. But he's just, on Thanksgiving Day, he's bringing out his usual bowl and his usual dog food. And Snoopy takes one look at it, the dog food, and says, "This isn't fair. The rest of the world today is eating turkey with all the trimmings, and all I get is dog food. Why? Because I'm a dog. All I get is dog food." He stood there and stared at his food for a moment and said, "Well, I guess it could be worse. I could be a turkey." It's important to give thanks in small things, right? It's important to give thanks in what you have and to appreciate that. Came across another story about a redneck buys a lottery ticket, and he wins the lottery. And so he comes into Austin maybe. Came into Austin and was going to cash in his ticket. So he goes to the guy, and the guy verifies, "Yes, you won $20 million. Fantastic." He says, "Great, I want my $20 million now." And the guy says, "Well, it doesn't quite work that way." And we said, "We can give you $1 million today, and we'll give you $1 million every year for the next 19 years. And the guy says, no, I don't think so. I want $20 million. I want my $20 million now." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but that's just not the way it's set up. That's not the way it works. We can give you $1 million this year, and we can give you another $1 million every year for the next 19 years. And the man looked at him and said, "Look here, I know what's going on here. Look, you either give me my $20 million right now, or I want my dollar back." Be grateful, right? Be grateful for what we have. So, what Bill tells us in really moving through troubled times, these are actually shifts in consciousness, if you really think about it. He's giving you little tips to how to shift your energy and your awareness out of focusing on the difficulties and the challenges. Because remember, we do know that what we focus our energy and our consciousness into is what we're actually giving more energy and power to. We're actually helping to keep ourselves stuck in many ways in these challenging, difficult times by continually going over difficulties and challenges. So when you find yourself going through a challenge in life, focus on your next action and not what went wrong. So think about that one for a moment. What we have a tendency to do is spend a lot of time and energy going over and over again what went wrong. Anybody ever made a mistake? You don't have to raise your hand. That was a rhetorical question, you know. We've all made mistakes, and what we have a tendency to do is we tend to go over that mistake over and over again, don't we? And we find ourselves, doing the mea culpas and giving ourselves 30 lashes, more sometimes, less sometimes. But what he's saying is, use that same kind of thinking and energy to shift your awareness out of going over the difficulty or the mistake or the error, or if something happens even to you, someone else makes a mistake for that matter. You find someone else makes a mistake, sometimes we find ourselves going over and over somebody else's mistake, don't we? And what we're doing really is creating more of what we don't want. And so what he's saying is, think about, rather than make that shift, ask yourself the question, well, okay, so that's happened. What's next? What is the next step? What's the next positive approach? What's the next positive thing that I can do to move past what's gone wrong? And if you will do that and then take that step, what you'll find is that your energy is moving in the direction of what you want to experience and moving out of the experience of the challenge or the problem and the difficulty. When something dreadful happens, it's valuable to move as quickly as possible into, okay, what's my next opportunity here? What's the next thing that I can do to make this shift into something different? In the Abraham Hicks work, it talks about what is the next level of emotional energy up from where I am right now. It doesn't mean that you deny what's going on or what you're feeling right now, but what is the next energy vibration that's just a little bit higher than where I am right now? Doesn't mean that you jump from feeling, rotten and miserable to jumping into complete joy immediately, but you take that next step up. And what you'll find is if you take that next step, I love that saying, I think it was, I was trying to remember the poet that said this. I think it was, I want to say E. Cummins, but I'm not 100% sure, but he said, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll be able to see farther. And so take that next step, and you'll be able to see a little bit more of the possibilities for you. And this is one that I sometimes have a challenge with, and I have to remind myself continually, and I'm not always great at it, but I'm working on it and getting better at it. One of the tips he says is that when you find yourself in a challenging situation or circumstance, remind yourself and remember to live within your means. Live within your means. In other words, don't use energy and resources that you haven't already manifested in life. We have a tendency to borrow from the future a lot, don't we? And it's important for us to really manifest the needs that we have today. That's why, I think Jesus said, give us this day our daily bread. And so he's saying, don't borrow trouble, don't borrow from the future, don't spend your time and energy looking into the future and borrowing through worry and fear and concern, but really pay attention to what is present for you today and live in that energy and that awareness, and you'll find that you have an experience of more fullness and abundance than you realize. But if you're spending time thinking and worrying about what ifs, what's going to happen again, then you're actually limiting yourself and you're helping to actually draw to you experiences of feelings of lack and limitation. So live within your resources today. He says, when you're going through challenging times, it's really important that you're taking care not only of your thinking and your emotions, but it's also important to take care of your physical body. Because if you're not taking care of your physical body, I can assure you your thinking and your emotions are going to be out of whack. See, we're actually a complete package here. We're a complete package. We are a thinking, feeling, physical, spiritual being. We are complete and whole only when we're really honoring and taking care of all those aspects of ourselves. The mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical. And so if we are neglecting our physical well-being, we're also, whether we realize it or not, neglecting our spiritual, our emotional, and our mental well-being. If we're neglecting our emotional well-being, we're definitely affecting and neglecting our physical well-being, aren't we? Because we know that most of our physical dis-eases, it's an interesting word, isn't it? It's really important for us to notice and pay attention to that word, dis-ease. Dis-ease really comes from not being in a place of an energy, an emotional energy of well-being. And so one of the most valuable things we can do in terms of well-being is not only to take care of ourselves emotionally, but also take care of ourselves physically, because they do affect each other. And so do things to take care of yourself. Get physical, not just metaphysical. Metaphysical, it only takes you so far. It's good, it's important, but you got to get physical as well, right? All right, so, and of course, one of the most valuable things that we teach in Unity and one of the most important practices that we can all participate in is to meditate regularly and consistently, daily. Take some time to go into that stillness. There's just an amazing power in just simply being in the place of stillness and quiet and peace. Moving into that place within us where we experience that connection with the oneness, with the stillness of all being. And it allows us to realign our energy and our thinking and our feeling and our consciousness and our physical being, for that matter, because it relaxes the body. It really works on all those levels, doesn't it? When I was thinking about this understanding about meditation, I came across a quote from Gandhi. He says, when someone asked him what he thought about Western civilization, and he said, I think it would be a good idea. I love his humor. Sometimes it's really valuable. I think civilizing our mind, our mental civilization would be a very good idea. Civilizing our thinking processes in a way that we are stilling that chatter, that monkey mind that we talk about, stilling the gremlins of thought and emotions and feelings, and just simply allowing ourselves to rest in that place of quiet and peace. Buddha said, meditation brings wisdom. Lack of meditation leaves ignorance. Knowing well what leads you forward and what holds you back, and choose the path that leads to wisdom. One of the things that I have come across in my work and studies and practices that has been extremely valuable to me, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll bring it up again. A great tip for going through troubled times that really tends to work on, I believe, all levels: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And that's the energy work, the tapping work that I do, the EFT work. And that's just one method of energy work. But doing the energy work actually can help transform us from a place of stress and difficulties in our thinking, our emotions, our physical well-being. All of them, it helps to realign us with, I believe, the natural energy and flow of life. And so if you're not familiar with that tapping, I encourage you to do some research and look into it. We'll actually be doing more teaching on that as we go through different courses and classes at different times. How many? I think I asked this a week or two ago. How many of you have actually done some of the tapping work? I think most of you have, haven't you? How many of you have benefited from it? Yeah, you can see that it's something that works. You know, we don't always know exactly everything about how it works, but we know it works, and it works on a lot of different levels. So I encourage you to take some time to investigate and find out how that really works and what it can do to help you to move back into an alignment of your wholeness. And then, of course, one of the most important tips, and I think it's really valuable for us to set aside at least one day a year to do this, and that's to give thanks. It's kind of silly if you think about it, putting aside one day a year to give thanks. And yet, it's important, isn't it? I think it's valuable to take time and honor the very act and the energy of giving thanks. Because giving thanks, when you're finding yourself in a difficult place, when you're finding yourself in a challenge, there's nothing that will help move you out of that quicker and more effectively and more efficiently than looking for, thinking about, tuning your energy into something that you can appreciate and give thanks for. I love Thanksgiving. It's absolutely one of my favorite holidays. In fact, in some ways, I think I like Thanksgiving as much, if not more, than Christmas. And so we're being taught through so many different ways the importance and value of giving thanks. Spend time every day before you go to sleep, when you first wake up in the morning, to think about at least 2 to 3 things that you have to be grateful for. Think about 2 or 3 things right now that you have to be grateful for, and just see if you can tune into the feeling of what it feels like to be grateful. Can you do that? Now, what do you notice that is happening when you began doing that? Can you feel the difference? If you can begin to feel that difference by feeling grateful right now in this moment for something, anything, you're beginning to shift your energy vibration, and what you're actually doing is aligning yourself with something even greater that you can be grateful for. You'll find yourself drawing to you more of experiences for which you can feel grateful. In Thessalonians 5:18 it says, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you." In everything give thanks. It's an ongoing process. It's an attitude of heart and mind. It's not just a simple activity, though it is that, but it's an energy. Gratitude in itself is a vibration. It's a very high vibration. It is a very, I'm going to say it, it's a very anabolic vibration. It means it's life enhancing. And so the more we can tune into this, the more we can experience the value of this. Oftentimes we find ourselves focusing on those things that are not necessarily what we want to draw into our experience. It seems like we get conditioned to look past those things that are a blessing and then think about things that we can complain about. I came across the story of a woman, her little boy found themselves, they were caught up in a tornado. And the mother wrapped one arm around the young boy and was holding on to a tree and another one and was holding on with all her might. But it was just too much. And the tornado tore the young boy out of her arms. And she said, "Oh no, oh my God, please, Lord, oh no, bring him back to me." And next thing you know, you hear a thump and there's the boy and he's just fine. And she says, "He had a hat." I mean, how often do we find ourselves looking at what's missing rather than looking at the blessing? Notice that for yourselves. Notice when you're looking for what's missing and skipping over and missing completely the blessing. Gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving the present. So when you find yourself finding and feeling that sense of gratitude, it's important to express it in some way. Express it in your voice by saying thank you. Express it in your heart by feeling the energy of gratitude. Express it, sometimes people express it in song, sometimes they express it in dance. Find some way of expressing the energy of gratitude in your life. And what you'll find is it begins to shift you out of whatever it was that brought you into the experience of challenges and difficulties in the first place. Bill Vaughn says, "We hope that when the insects take over the world, they will remember with gratitude how we took them along on all of our picnics." Gratitude is important regardless. It helps. It makes a difference. And Doris Day, bless her heart, said, "Gratitude is riches. Complaint is poverty." If you think about it, there's some real truth in that. Yeah. And I came across this quote from Melody Beatty, which I like. "Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life. It turns what we have into enough and more. It turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, confusion into clarity. It can turn a meal into a feast, a house into a home, a stranger into a friend." So when you find yourself going through difficult and troubling times, remember the energy, the value, the feeling, the experience of what you have to be grateful for. Look for whatever little thing is a blessing for you in that. Came across a quote from Joyce Myers. Many of you know Joyce Myers. And she says, "I'm not here." She said, "I'm not where I need to be, but thank God I'm not where I was." So even though you may not be where you want to be or need to be, oftentimes we can give thanks for not being where we were. And I want to close with a knowing and an understanding of this. In John 16:33, Jesus said, "I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world." You and I have that same energy, that same capacity, that same possibility of overcoming. And gratitude is one of the most valuable tools we can use to help us to overcome the world. And so it is. Let's move into our meditation time. So let's move into a comfortable place. begin to breathe in and out gently, we move into that place of stillness. We know that it's in a place of peace that we're most open and receptive to knowing and feeling and experiencing the presence of God in us, in this time. Breathing into the heart space, allowing an energy, an awareness of peace and gratitude to come into the heart, to fill the heart with that vibration. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the breath that we're breathing, for the life that flows through our very nature, our being. Thank you for our physical body. For allowing us to move through life. Thank you for friends and family and connections, for this spiritual community. Just let that energy and feeling of gratitude expand as you allow the awarenesses, the thoughts of all the many blessings and the ways that you have been blessed and are being blessed right here and now. Flowing in with each breath and releasing cares and concerns and anxieties and fears as you release your out breath. Let's take this time now in the stillness and silence of our being to simply radiate the magnetic energy of gratitude. Giving thanks not only for the blessings we have received, but blessings that are already on their way. In the silence, in the silence. as you allow the breath to flow in and out. Let the words, thank you, flow in your heart. Thank you. Thank you. Take another nice deep breath. Allowing the heart to expand and grow and fill with that fullness of gratitude. Take another nice deep breath and gently, when you're ready, open your eyes. Let a smile of gratitude come across not only your heart but your face. Take another deep breath. And so it is.